thanks to Community Shares for the big share and for everything, and for hosting these panels today, because it has been a really good way to show off the work of Community Shares and its agencies and the good work happening in Wisconsin. So I'm Ann Katz, I'm Director of Create Wisconsin. We're the state's community cultural development organization. We are all about the arts, community, and economy, and access and participation and benefits for all. I'm going to have each one of the panel members introduce themselves quickly, and then we're going to go back to each of them and have them talk about community engagement through the arts, which is the heart and soul of what you all do. So, Jim, you're first.
Super. Yeah, I'm Jim Krell. I'm the Public Programs Coordinator here at Arts and Literature Lab.
I'm Alexis London. I'm the Director at Bayview Foundation.
Justice Castaneda, Executive Director of Commonwealth Development.
Great. So I'm just going to say about Create Wisconsin. As I said, we're all about the arts, culture, and community for everyone, everywhere in the state. We are a service organization that works with pretty much everyone who cares about Wisconsin's future. The arts world, for sure, and local government, economic development, education, politics, again, everyone who cares about Wisconsin's future. And what we know is that the arts are the universal language that brings us together. Everyone has some kind of creativity in their lives. Most people don't call themselves artists, but everyone is a creative soul, and the arts really make us human. And so today, that's the work that we do, again, in every corner of the state. We help people, organizations, businesses, and communities figure out how to make the arts come alive and, again, get everyone to benefit. So we have 3 leaders here who are doing that work on the ground, from the ground up, and I'm going to hand it over to them to talk about how it works in their organizations, why they're doing it. They know what to say. So Jim, you're going to go first.
Sure. Very good, and thank you. And we're on a wide shot so people can see my notes, but that's okay.
Where are we going? Where do I look?
It's fine if they see my notes here. But yeah, Arts and Literature Laboratory here. We're hosting the event today. And my colleagues Jolynn Roda and Rita Mae Reese picked that name deliberately, not only to reflect the interdisciplinary nature of the organization, but also because abbreviated it is ALL, or all. And that is sort of the spirit behind the organization, Arts for All, trying to increase access and availability of the arts for a wide range of audiences and artists and so forth. So, serving underserved people with underserved backgrounds or different levels of experience in terms of artistic training. And we're essentially a nonprofit, community-driven arts center here in Madison. And we're interdisciplinary, so we support the visual arts, literary arts, performing arts, as well as an important educational component with adult and youth education programs. So in terms of integrating people into our organization and making sure they have access to the arts, that includes inclusion in our programming. So over 50% of the artists featured in various programs in those interdisciplinary areas are from marginalized groups or groups that are underserved conventionally from the art community. It's also an important goal for us to pay artists to provide different means of supporting their art-making practices, either through payment for their exhibitions or, as I'll get to in a moment, teaching opportunities and other ways to support their ongoing art making. And broadening the programming that we have here, like with our Indigenous arts program with a couple different components, one being an art market. We've done 2 different Indigenous art markets so far. And we also have educational programs, both for adults and youth, teaching Indigenous art-making skills. And we have to thank Dakota Mace, artists Dakota Mace and Paige Skenendor, for really taking the lead on those programs. shaping them into the successes that they've been. And our role is to help facilitate those ideas. So bringing in ideas from the outside and providing sort of an infrastructure for those activities. Other issues in terms of access and outreach. Each summer we do a youth summer camp for the arts. Very successful program. We're gearing up for that because it's a lot of work. So we're looking for that in the near future. And various means by which we provide financial aid or different financial aid or scholarships for those programs. So for the summer camp, about 1/4 or about 160 spots are set aside for scholarship students or financial aid students to make sure that they have access to some wonderful programs and some wonderful art making opportunities over the summer. And as I mentioned before, that's also a way to support teaching artists with providing them with income. Other outreach programs we have a partnership with with Dane County Jail social workers and UW faculty to organize a monthly arts program for incarcerated individuals who can do arts projects with their children. So a way to bring those families together and have art be a part of their a positive experience through this monthly arts program. And other activities include a senior sewing program, which has been very popular, working with the Newbridge Senior Center, teaching sewing skills to senior citizens. And we've included now a new section of that program for Spanish-speaking individuals, so with a Spanish-speaking instructor. I have one more card to look at. I can't remember if I should pass it on to the person. I meant to look at that clock and time myself. See, I was juggling the cards and the clock, but oh, very good. And just to recap, again, what we do in those areas, in the visual arts, as people can see in this very room, we have galleries for exhibitions. Currently, behind me and to the left and right of me, you can see Brenda Baker and Bird Ross, their work, and in the next gallery, work by Helen Lee from the UW Glass Lab. So a range of artists coming through, a range of experiences. We also have professional development programs, again, for people with a range of experiences. We have the Bridge Work program, which is open to both people who've gone through, say, an MFA program and recently graduated from an MFA program, or people who are self-taught who are looking for professional development opportunities, and that program, the capstone of it, is an exhibition here at Arts and Literature Laboratory. In the literary arts, we have a wide range of poetry readings. We're going through an 8-week Winter Festival of Poetry every Sunday for the last few weeks, featuring a wide range of local and regional poets. Above me on the mezzanine here, we have a small press library focusing on small press and poetry and chapbooks and things like that people during our business hours can come in and browse through and take a seat and read from those books. And and different writing groups that meet periodically to help each other, sort of motivate each other to focus on their writing time and setting aside time to writing. And the performing arts, in this very space that we're sitting in, we have concerts ranging from jazz to experimental music to chamber music to Americana and folk. Again, providing opportunities for local and regional artists to perform, as well as off-site opportunities for music, like the Madison Jazz Festival that we're very heavily involved in, that we held here as well as on campus and various clubs around the city. In this room, we also have outside groups come in and do performances like Falcon Ridge Players that do staged readings of works that are in the public domain. Very interesting group. And for Matt's Last Theater that do sort of Brechtian work, and they're doing social justice, and they have a adaptation of Mother Courage coming up in a couple weeks. And then I work on a film program called Mills Folly Microcinema, a monthly screening of experimental film and video art. And the outreach component of that is every 6 months we do what we call Project Projection, where it's sort of an open submission process, and we try to have it as close to sort of an open mic format. I do look at the films before we put them up on the screen, but other than that, we really try, and we haven't, I've really barely turned anyone away in those contexts. We pretty much try to show as many people as want to show something, and that helps people sort of focus on when they know they have an opportunity to share the work, they want to make work. So that's just That's right. That's right. So there, a lot of the work here is curated by our literary arts team or our visual arts team, but there's also an important aspect of the organization where opportunities like that can present themselves. So
Cool.
very good.
Alexis.
Super cool. I had no idea Art Lit Lab did that much. I'm so impressed. Yeah, no, that's super exciting, and we're so lucky to have you in the city. That's a great organization. So I'm Alexis. I'm with Bayview Foundation. I'm the director there. And Bayview is this really interesting organization because we have 3 aspects to our mission, and I'm passionate about all of them. One is housing, so we provide affordable housing near downtown Madison. We have a contract with HUD for Section 8 housing, so majority of residents only pay 30% of their income on rent, so it's truly affordable, and it's close to so many amazing amenities in downtown Madison. Second aspect of our mission is community development and educational programming. So not just for the residents that live at Bayview, which there will be about 500 when our redevelopment is complete, but all the residents in the neighborhood in need of services, in need of after-school support, in need of food access, in need of mental health support, in need of immigration status resources. So like a whole wide array of social services that are really relevant to the community. Our staff develop trusted relationships and then provide those services to meet people where they're at. And then the third part of our mission, and an aspect that sometimes doesn't get as much attention as those 2 pieces, is art and culture. And this is what I am most passionate about. I'm excited about all of those other things too, but I went to school for community development and art making, and I think that it truly is the thread that binds things together, and I feel lucky to work in an organization where it's place-based art making, and so we actually, residents are involved in community-focused art pieces and creative development. So it starts with developing skills, getting artists from the community to come in and teach at Bayview. And so there's all different levels of engagement. It's from early childhood through elementary, through middle and high school, through seniors. And then residents who engage in these projects with artists, teaching artists, professional artists, they're creating art about themselves, so they're representing themselves. They're learning the skills to do that, and then they're taking it a step further and then creating cultural pieces that then either are for themselves, for their community, and or for the wider public to consume or to enjoy. And so we try to hit those 3 levels of development with arts programming. So it's about that personal fulfillment, about that skill building, and then ultimately about representation and inclusion. There are very few opportunities for low-income communities, marginalized communities to have access to arts programming in a way that is really relevant to them and responsive to their needs. And so when you create art in community, like where people live, it actually creates opportunity for them to have a voice in this bigger dialogue around art making. Bayview, as part of our redevelopment, we've really centered art. We're in the process of redeveloping all of our housing. So we've torn down our 1970 housing and we're building all new units. And if you drive by on West Wash and Regent Street, you'll see this just really colorful array of townhouses and apartments that really catch your eye and they call to be looked at. This community is desiring attention, is wanting to have people notice them, not just the cultural diversity of Bayview, but the rich history, the beauty of the community, the residents. And art is this amazing opportunity to do that. So when you add color, when you add light, when you add representation, it really gives voice to the people who live in that community. And that's something that Madison desperately needs. We need more opportunities for communities that are low income, diverse communities to have access to having a voice in the cultural landscape. And other people, the rest of Madison, who are driving to the Capitol, driving to the farmers market, to be able to see that and to take it in and understand that this community is for everybody. It's for all of these different segments of the population. And we need our landscape, we need our buildings, we need our green space to really reflect all these other communities and not just a dominant white upper middle class community. And so we have murals on the outside of buildings. So we have one mural that's on the corner of West Wash and Regent on our 48 unit apartment building that's called Hope Finds a Home. This was designed in collaboration with a group of 3 artists who were the facilitating artists, and then we had over 70 residents of all ages participate in its creation. It was painted on parachute cloth, and then the artist adhered it to the side of the building, and it's just this really bright, colorful, very eye-catching piece of artwork that I think has gotten even almost as much attention as the new housing has gotten. So that's really exciting that art's getting that much attention. We're about to do a request for qualifications for a second mural that will actually be a little bit larger, and it will be on our 25-unit apartment building that just was built this summer. And this will be a piece that's about water and land acknowledgement because it will be facing the bay. It'll be facing Monona Bay. So it's a great opportunity for the landscape to have the building to have a conversation with the water. And we're trying to find an Indigenous artist who would lead that project. But part of the redevelopment is the housing, the community center, and the art. So throughout the campus, it's about a 6.4 acre campus, there will be 20 public pieces of art, either inside the building, the new community center, or on the buildings or on the campus in some way. So every opportunity we have to look for a way to do something creative, something that represents community and beauty, we're trying to take advantage of it. So another opportunity is the playground. We're integrating artwork into the playground. The playground itself will represent a fallen oak tree, which is what the land was before it was redeveloped. And so that bur oak, well, it was home to more than 500 different species. And so we're trying to do artwork in that playground that reflects all of those little animals that found some refuge in the oak trees in Madison's oak savannas. So this is like what I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited about these opportunities, and really having the opportunity to talk here about it is exciting to me. I think I've used up my time, so I will pass it on to Justice.
We'll have a little more time to elaborate when you're all finished with the presentations. Okay.
What's up? That's a lot. That's a lot. Hey, I'm digging the tree. I'm looking at that tree. I always like it. Anyway, to everybody else on video, you guys can't see this tree. Trust me that there's a tree and that I'm looking at said tree. So Commonwealth, I'm listening to Lexi and about the synergy between a lot of things that happen in community development and the way it all comes together in Commonwealth. It's kind of one of those stories. Was founded in 1979 as a violence prevention initiative. And I don't know if they necessarily would have called it an initiative because, I don't know, it sounds so technical. But basically what you got is you got a situation from 77 to 79, and I was born in 79, so I don't remember this. But
You were told this.
my father was probably part of the problem. No, he was there. the Willis Street corridor is kind of in planning speak. It was the third kind of major gentrification in the city of Madison. The first one was obviously the first settlement right over here on Dayton Street. The second one was the Greenbush, which is why I think the retention and the work that Lexi and Bayview are doing is so important, just because that was kind of the last semblance of actual both diversity and also just real housing in that area. And then the third one was the Willis Street area. And in the 70s, late 70s, it was considered by the city as blight, and there was a lot of tension around the future of the corridor. There was going to be a kind of an approach to get commercial, kind of your chain restaurants, like that type of commercial district in the area, and there was a Taco John's that was going to come in, and it's funny because I'm just imagining that Taco John's today and like how that would sit there, and like just it would be so awkward. But the no, it was right. Okay, so the story here is that there was going to be a Taco John's right at the corner of Brearley and Willie Street, and I don't know, a lot of the folks who were kind of involved in this are no longer in Madison. Some of them are, and they have different stories about how this all went down. But the city shut down all the bars on Willie Street. There's a lot of blight shootings. The place where Commonwealth is today was the Lake House Tavern, and shootings, someone got shot right in front of that place. There was a lot of this stuff happening. So the city shuts down the street, and a bunch of artists and musicians got together, and they did a type of Take Back the Streets event. And they came out there in 77, and they were out there in the street banging on the drums, and they came back in 78, and they did it the second time, and the money that they raised from those things and kind of the collective energy is what created Commonwealth Development in 79. It was created in Valentine's Day of 1979, because, music and love, man, music and love will solve this stuff. So, but that event, and I'll come back to it in a little bit, that event is obviously the Willie Street Fair. So that's where the Willie Street Fair, kind of the origin of Commonwealth, is synergistic with the Willie Street Fair. So we were a product of the Willie Street Fair. There's probably a lot of kids who are products of the Willie Street Fair. So kind of thinking about this and going back, I've said this in different spaces. I'll say it again. In terms of community development, community to me is a verb. It is a process. It's something that's happening. It's not a destination or a noun. It's something that's happening. And when you think about that in terms of Commonwealth's approach to violence prevention, the thinking was the way that you address violence over time is you create and maintain low-income housing for residents and for families. We'll bring that back to the artists in just a second. You develop an economy in that area, and then you train people to work in that economy, and that's how you actually address violence. So that's what they did. So they started buying property in the Willie Street corridor, and along Willie Street and in some of the adjacent streets, and fixing it up, and then creating low-income housing. Now, the Willie Street Fair. So all this is happening concurrently because the Willie Street Fair is also evolving over the years, and it's really interesting because I know so many of these people, but when you read the posters and you see, I see these folks, and I see, in their heyday that they were out there at this Willie Street Fair in the 80s, especially my dad. And I know there's pictures I have, some of the earliest pictures I have of him and I are on the Willie Street, at the Willie Street Fair when I was a little kid. I'll just show you guys that at the end. But so in '87 they create a business incubator. The second part was, so first part is healthy housing for residents and families. Second part is equitable economic development. So they create the business incubators, and the first one was Madison Enterprise Center, which is a partnership at the time between Mayor Sensenbrenner, MG&E, and Commonwealth Development to create this space. And it's hard to get a straight line into this, but part of that space was always the gallery. I'll come back to that in a second in terms of economic development and the arts. So there's a first stage incubator that we create, 91, Commonwealth starts working at East High School with high school students to do job training. So that was where the first part of our workforce development, which is the training people to work at the businesses, comes in. We started working with them. 96, we create the second stage business incubator, which is Main Street Industries, which is right down the street here at where Giant Jones Old Sugar Distillery Community Shares Wisconsin's in there. That's the old Greyhound bus depot. And then in 2000, early aughts, we created our first big housing project on Main Street, the Yahara Riverview Apartments. Programs are all expanding. Willie Street Fair is still evolving. And the early teens, we started working with the city of Madison to support a lot of really amazing work that was going on in the Meadowood neighborhood on Madison's west side. There was a lot of things that changed about Commonwealth in terms of its focus, including the way the board was structured. It once upon a time was a membership organization that was very much central, or it was exclusively centered in the Willie Street area. There was a lot of thinking at the time going on about, like, if we got this thing and it's working, do we have some type of responsibility to support other neighborhoods in the city? So we ended up going to Meadowood. And today, this is kind of where we are. We have, we right now, kind of all this, we still create and manage housing, the healthy housing component, and a different panel sometime. Maybe I'll talk about the idea of healthy housing 1, 2, and 3. But the idea of housing being affordable to folks, also tenure is it's as important as getting people into housing. So stability in housing is as important as just getting people into housing. And so if you get people into housing, but the neighborhoods are turning over at 50%, that's not doing what you're trying to do in terms of stable housing. So that's a big part of it, which is working with folks. And I think, for a lot of folks that work in low-income housing in general, because America, income is very much tied to health. And so you recognize that when you're working with folks who are struggling in terms of just income, that they're going to be struggling in a lot of their areas. And so if you're going to house them, and that's your model, if you will, you can't act like it's a different situation. So that takes a special type of communication and relationship building with the people who are living in your housing. And this is a very real thing. It's very sacred to us. The people that live with us, I'll get more into it in just a second, but they're very beautiful people, like everybody, and the way that we integrate the housing into every other part of the fabric of a neighborhood is very fluid and real. And so making sure that you're establishing those relationships and keeping people there is very critical. So the economic development, we still have the incubators. We've been, in terms of supporting that stuff, it's one of the things, the number of businesses in the range of businesses that have started in these incubators in Madison's East Side and that are still here, it's phenomenal. I mean, things is, the RP's Pastas and the Shop Bops, but also a lot of our coffee, a lot of our food. A lot of this system has been supported through these incubators. The Madison Recycling Program started in the incubator, so there's been a lot of use and a lot of examples of the versatility of it. And then our workforce development, where we started off just at East High School. Right now we work and support the career centers in all 4 high schools, doing the youth apprenticeship and experiential learning for the school district. And then we have our programming in all the high schools. And then we have a number of, I'm trying to, I would say they're more advanced, but advanced implies the type of progression. I would just say that they are more involved. Structured internship programs that we pay youth to be involved in actual design and development studios over the summer in partnerships with places like the City of Madison, and then the Youth Advisory Board, which has been going on and getting kids from around the high schools to weigh in. And really, for the first couple of years, it was working with the chief of police and really discussing the reality, and I would say it's been some of the more raw and real conversations between the police department and people from, in any capacity, around, the real relationships between the MPD and Madison. And we've evolved. We moved on from it being just about policing. I think the conversation of community violence policing is definitely a component of it, but it is not the biggest component. And so it started to transcend the conversation with the police. And so we had to evolve out of it being strictly a conversation with the police and really looking at a lot of these other areas, systems, the relationships, et cetera, and where that's going. So, and then there's the fair. And the fair, so all this time it's been evolving, and this is really one of the big components in terms of bringing people together. And so that's Commonwealth. What I'll say, kind of to bring it back to add the idea of art, if people are healthy, that's what they do anyway. This is the thing, like if people will argue about the prehensile thumbs or fire or all these other things that make us unique, but the idea of artistic endeavor where you're creating something for the collective at an optimality where you're not taking anything from it, that is a human thing. And when we're healthy and when we're given the space, that is what we do. And so I think that's right, we're into it. And so when people say about housing, I always say, well, imagine the first time you ever fell in love, and it doesn't have to be with a person. It can be with reading or writing or running or cooking or painting or whatever it is, but can you remember that feeling? Can you remember what that was like and what it means to fall in love, and think about housing as if you were going to fall in love in that place? Or maybe more importantly, could you imagine your child falling in love? And when you think about the capacity or the things that you need, I don't know that you can, like I said, the idea of teaching art, I think art is what we do. I think refining it, honing it, doing all these other things, sure, but the idea of the endeavor itself, I think giving people the space to do that by alleviating the pressures that are on so many of us and so many people that make it harder for us to find the energy to, to express ourselves in that way. I think that's where we all have that kind of collective responsibility. That's where Commonwealth really sees a lot of our work. And I would, I hope that in terms of the way that we do the work, it's all through artistic endeavor. This is the way that we discuss our meetings. Everything else is through rhythm, it's through tempo, it's through the things that I think are part of us, the idea of the drum and what that does in terms of the heartbeat, and making sure that the way that we're operating, the way that we're engaging people, the way that we're engaging place, the way that we're engaging nature, all of this should be an essence and expression of our artistic endeavor. And this is what we're trying to create, and through our dialogue and through our work. So, and that's it. That's all.
Oh my God, you guys are so awesome. Gosh, where do we go? So thank you for each of for the work you're doing, because each of your stories is about a particular place and the humanity within. I guess that's a way to say it. And the whole theme is really about the fact that creativity, we as humans can't help but be creative. And so you're all giving people the opportunity to do that. I guess to follow up on that, what's a story about one person or one group or one outcome? The Willie Street Fair, yes. The Bayview and all of its creativity, ALL and all of this. What would be one moment that you would want to recount, past, present, or what you're planning, that would really help us, give us more texture to these beautiful stories that you've told? You have a million stories. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'm not thinking of a particular story, but something that's happening over and over again as people are discovering us and discovering the space. It's been very rewarding at the end of a program to just stand near the door and, people comment and, say, we didn't know you were here. That's right, things like that. And, we were slated to open right when the pandemic hit. So then it took us quite a while to then get back up to speed. But, I think what we've all discovered or rediscovered as we've come out of the pandemic is that, how much we missed the shared aesthetic experience, sharing, whether it's music or art or film or whatever. People can stream things at home, and they can do, you can read by yourself and the other things, but there's
Nothing that replaces actual human contact.
right. And I think that's been among the rewarding things about being at the different programs here, not just the ones I'm directly involved in, but just also helping out with other things, is the excitement and the energy when you get people together and they have a shared experience that they would not have had unless we all gathered together for a particular event. So that's not one example, but it's like it happens again and again. Yeah.
Well, just really quickly, I think what's amazing to me is like what artists do, and I think everyone has it within them to be artists, but not everyone has the opportunity to be cultivated as artists. But when an artist is put in a position where they get to be part of something bigger and they have that opportunity to grow, they really go outside of the box and create something new. And I think of Bayview as a participatory art project. That's how I envision it. That's how it kind of manifested with all of the resident engagement. And today it kind of all came home to me because I was walking out of Bayview to go pick up my kid, and one of our staff, the outreach coordinators, showed me a story cloth that one of the residents, one of the seniors was working on, because we're doing an art piece to dedicate the senior lounge and the new community center. And this is a senior who's been in almost every single meeting that Bayview had about the redevelopment, so 20 meetings in different languages. She's older among women, and she said she just wants to move before she dies. That's like the most important thing to her. And so she wants to see her new home. She wants to live there. And so she did a story class. She finished it, and I got to see it today, that marked the date that she moved into her new home, which was December 19th, 2023. And then she also did it about Tea and Talk, which is a program at Bayview for older adults where they get together, have tea and eat and snacks and chat. That happens at the community center. But it was that convergence of like home, health, community, and beauty. This beautiful piece of art that now will dedicate the space will be combined with other older adults to create this space as like a safe space for older adults.
And the journey there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it kind of all came together. It was really a cool moment when I walked out today to see December 19th. I'll always remember that. She moved into her new home that day. Yeah, pretty cool.
Art is the universal language, right? Like artistic expression. It's, we all can appreciate it. So the story I will tell about this. So the Willie Street Fair, it's interesting. It's such a good time. I think Madison, when you're here all the time, you take for granted how amazing the summers are. And the idea of access to free music at such a scale. It's, I left for almost 18 years, and coming back is just this thing where we do this. Yeah, and the summer music is just, it's a phenomenal thing. So there's been the Willie Street Fair has its own kind of, as you could imagine, its own internal politics and, in terms of how we do things. And so during the pandemic, there was a question, in September of 2020, what do we do here? And we're obviously not going to have a fair, but we were like, the Willie Street Fair for Wilmar, who's our partner in this, and for us, it supports our programming. It's something where the neighborhood, they support us, and we just kind of felt like we owe it to do something. And so we came up with the idea of the Porch and Bubble Tour. And what we did is we got Schmitz Towing, and who I think Willie Street gives them a lot of business. We got them to let us use 2 flatbeds, and we put Primitive Culture on one and the People's Brother Band on the other. And the idea, so we knew we couldn't have a parade, and we couldn't have people gathering, and so we couldn't announce any routes. But what we said we're gonna do is we're gonna put these bands on this thing, and we're just gonna drive around we're just gonna drive around with this music on the back of these trucks. I don't think we understood how slow 5 miles an hour is, because that's as fast as you can go with the band, with people on the back. And we also made this mistake to stop at Clemens and Jennifer Street is the first spot. And if you know the geography, that's right off the bike path. And so People's Brothers Band is just on top of this truck at the corner of Jennifer and Clemens. And like it reminded me of the Pied Piper in a way, because people started coming off the bike path, and then we're like, all right, people are congregating, we got to get out of here, so let's take off. And then we go 5 miles, and we're like, nobody is going away. And so we had to like drive around the neighborhood trying to lose people before we could stop again. But then we were like, you know what, we just got to get into so we ended up going to Waterfront Park, and then we went to, we were going to the park so that when we did stop, the people that were following us, and it was just like this impromptu.
People were desperate at that.
And but the
some
point
kind
of
of
that though is
some
watching
kind of
people-
engagement.
right? And watching people come out on their porches just to dance. And even for me, one of our board, our vice president now on the board, he said, I didn't know how much my brain and my body and my soul needed this right now, was just to hear this music and to see people dancing and just wanting to dance when we've all been kind of inside. So that would be the story right there.
That's good. So in the very few seconds we have left, I'll just say that one of the things that's really struck me about your stories is that you've all talked about places, right? You all have places, physical spaces that you are in charge of, that you get people in, that people use. I don't mean this in a bad way, but they're just spaces. And what's important is how they come alive. What you've talked about is how they come alive. So, the colorful beauty of Bayview in its new iteration, and I have to say I have a long history with Bayview, and I'm so thrilled to see how it is now. So congratulations. But it could have just been your basic gray cinder block like it was, but you worked hard to get that color and texture into that space so that it would be inspiring. And here we are sitting in this art gallery, which is a bunch of blank walls, until you give it color and texture and the creativity, and not only your housing, but the fair. And now I'm going to have this image of like the flatbed tow trucks going 5 miles down the road. But I deal with a lot of people who want to have a building. They want to have an art center. They want to restore a theater, which is great. But I always say it's not about the building. It's about it's what's in the building. It's how you use the building. It's how people relate to the building. And just as you're talking about, people falling in love, I mean, you all have that. People falling in love with the place, and that you give them a home, you give them a space, you give them, place to be. But it's not until they feel a part of it that they've been able to plan it, like with Bayview, and that they have put their unique stamp on it here. And then there's a parade that takes them from one place to the other. That's when that to me is really thrilling. And, so thank you for your stories about how that's all happened. We have like 4 minutes. So any closing 1-minute things that you forgot to say, or that you just want to leave people with? This has been a wonderful examples of how arts and community, that's at the heart of what you're doing. Of course, I have to say what the heart is of what Community Shares is all about, and the work that we're all doing. And if you have any closing words, we'll hear them.
I could go for a shameless plug.
Shameless
to make
plug.
Sure that
How
people
about
know,
one shameless plug each?
People know how to have these shared experiences in our space. We're here at 111 South Livingston Street, across from the Sylvie, and you can check our schedule at artlitlab.org to see what we're up to.
In the Near East Side Cultural District, I will say.
Yes.
Okay, shameless plug.
I just want to say shout out to Community Shares. This is an amazing day for all of us, all of the participating orgs and the whole city. It's just such a great opportunity. It's thrilling, and everyone enjoys it. Our entire staff and board get involved, and so thanks for making that happen. So big shout out to Community Shares, Create Wisconsin for hosting the panel tonight. Thank you very much, and to these two guys who are doing really cool work in the city. Glad to be part of this arts community here.
No, I just echo that. Community shares, man, this is great. The big share is such a good time, I think, for Commonwealth. It's just fun. So shameless plug tonight. If you're around and you want to sing a bit, we'll be at the Weary Traveler Free House for our big share event. Doesn't start till 7 because Commonwealth is a lot younger than me at this point in terms of our staff, and so they organize events that start at 7 o'clock, and when I'm getting ready for bed. Anyway, so what I'll say though, that's the first. The second part of my shameless plug is, as a child of a musician, pay artists better and invest in the arts. It's I would say that in terms of municipal return on investment from a strict economic development capacity, and from that perspective, the best thing you can do for a city is invest in immigrants. And the next thing, invest in the arts. In terms of the long-term return on investment, if you have an infrastructure that supports immigrants always and support the arts always, please do so. And I think artists, we take it for granted. I believe that. And it's very easy to ask people to do things for free. I think people ask, why do I donate or pledge to Wart? And I'm like, well, check this out. Like, I love Saturdays on Ward is a Madison institution. But if you told somebody, hey, dog, I need you to come over to my house and I want you to play music while I do my laundry all afternoon, how much would you have to pay somebody to come over to your house and just mix it up all afternoon? And so it's like, pay artists all the time, invest in the arts. I love the big share. Thank you, guys.
Oh my gosh, great way to end. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Community Share.